Welcome back to the Sacred Hour. This is session 2 of our weekly Word and Witness. You've completed your first week of readings. That matters. Making a commitment and actually beginning is often the hardest part of any spiritual discipline. By giving God one focused hour a day in Scripture, the most influential story ever told, you're investing in something that will shape your heart, your mind, and your faith. This week, we moved from Genesis 1 through Leviticus 4:26. That means you've completed the first stretch of the Pentateuch, also known as the Torah. These are the first 5 books of the Bible, the foundation of everything else we will read. Pentateuch is simply the Greek way of saying 5 books, and Torah is the Hebrew way of saying instruction or teaching. 2 different languages, same set of books, same central purpose, to show us who God is, who we are, and how God has chosen to relate to his people. As you continue your sacred hour, traditionally, these books have been understood as the writings of Moses. The text itself mentions Moses writing portions of the law. Later biblical books refer to the law of Moses, and Jesus speaks of Moses' writings. That's why, for most of Jewish and Christian history, these books have been attributed to him. Over the last few centuries, scholars have examined the text more closely and noticed differences in style, vocabulary, and perspective. Because of that, many believe the Pentateuch was shaped over time through a long process of writing, collecting, and editing. Some theories suggest multiple sources woven together, others propose a core text that grew through additions, and still others see the Pentateuch as a collection of smaller stories and laws that were eventually brought together. There isn't one single scholarly conclusion, but most agree that the final form reflects a long, careful process. Regardless of which view someone holds, these 5 books function as the theological and narrative foundation of Scripture. They introduce creation, covenant, law, identity, and the character of God. Everything else in the Bible builds on what we encounter here. As we look at what you read this week, Genesis opens with God creating with intention, order, and beauty. Genesis 1 shows us a God who speaks and things come into being. Genesis 2 brings us closer, showing humanity formed in God's image and placed in a garden with purpose, responsibility, and boundaries. In Genesis 3 through 5, we see the entrance of sin and the ripple effects it creates brokenness in our relationship with God, with one another, and with creation. Yet, even in judgment, God's mercy is present. The genealogies that follow remind us that God's faithfulness continues across generations. Genesis 6 through 9 tells the story of the flood god's response to widespread corruption and the covenant he establishes with Noah afterward. Genesis 10 and 11 trace the spread of nations and the story of Babel, where human pride leads to scattering, yet God's purposes continue to move forward. Beginning in Genesis 12, the focus shifts to Abraham and the patriarchs, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. These stories are full of human flaws and family conflict, yet God remains faithful to his promises and continues to work through imperfect people. As we enter Exodus, we witness God delivering Israel from Egypt, forming them into a nation and giving them the law. The instructions for the tabernacle reveal God's desire to dwell among his people. These chapters blend history and theology, showing us what covenant relationship looks like. And finally, in the opening chapters of Leviticus, we encounter the theme of holiness. The sacrificial system teaches that drawing near to a holy God requires intentionality, obedience, and atonement, truths that ultimately point us toward Christ. As we close week 1, I want you to notice the thread that runs through everything you've read. God creates, humanity falls, God judges yet restores, God calls, God promises, and God chooses to dwell with his people. This is the story that shapes the rest of Scripture. And once again, congratulations on completing your first week. Your hour a day is forming habits of focus, attentiveness, and spiritual growth. Remember, the goal is presence. Every minute you spend in Scripture is doing something in you, even if you don't see it yet. As you continue your sacred hour, hold on to this truth. Every minute you give to God is forming something in you. Keep reading, keep listening for God's voice. Allow the word to do its work. Stay faithful to your sacred hour.